Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Megan Huber, and I'm super excited for today's guest, Dr. Cheri Toledo, because we are going to talk all things course creation, curriculum development, adult learning, and how to literally turn the coaching industry around. We're just going to move mountains today together, Dr. Cheri. So, welcome to the show. I'm so
Boom.
excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks, Megan. Oh boy.
Yeah, and we got to give a shout out to Debbie White
Debbie
because Debbie
White.
White is how you and I connected originally.
That's right. She's awesome. She's great.
Yes. So if you don't know Debbie, Debbie has built, I think, 7 businesses over the last 30 years, all different industries. And I know that she has sold, I think she sold at least one of those, maybe two of those were a sell.
Wow.
And she was a client of mine for 2 years when I had my Rise to Legendary Mastermind. And now Cheri, you are a client of Debbie's, and Debbie
That's right.
introduced us.
That's right. That's right. She's been the best coach I've had to put everything together. She just like click. It was boom. So really fun.
So good. Yeah. Well, we all need a coach. That's for sure.
Yes,
So,
that's right.
so Dr. Cheri, I love starting with like, tell us about your background. How did you even like build the craft and the expertise that you have today? Like, where did it come from? Let's start there.
All right. Well, I'm going to do the Reader's Digest version because it's a long story. Basically, I was in education for 44 years. The first half was high school, junior high, a little bit of elementary PE. I was a PE major in college. And then through different things that happened and different directions I headed in, I ended up getting a doctorate in technology and learning. And I taught at the university from 2002 until I retired in 2020. So even before that, though, I was actually teaching online courses to master's students who were in the program I was in at my university. So I like to say I've been teaching online, doing the online gig all century. So everything has been about that. And my area of expertise as I was a university professor, my areas of research were having to do with online learning and the whole idea of how do we make that experience enlightening, engaging, and fun for our online students. And so I've almost said clients because that's what I've done is taken
Yeah.
all of that experience. I think I've done 60 presentations on digital learning, which is what it was called for a while, distance learning. I've written several courses that teach people how to put courses together and how to teach online. So that's the quick and dirty answer.
All right. Well, Dr. Cheri knows this, but she and I have a lot in common. I started out as a teacher as well. And I remember telling you when we first met, if I wasn't a business education teacher, I would have been a PE teacher. That would have
Yay.
been the alternative. But when I started teaching in the public education sector, I was a high school teacher. I didn't go to college to be a teacher. I got a business degree, and you can get hired to teach without a teaching certification if you have an undergraduate degree in the subject matter that you're teaching. So, like, if somebody has a math degree, they could get hired by a school to be the math
Mhm.
teacher and not have a teaching certification. You just have to go
Right.
back to school to get it.
Exactly.
So, I was a business education teacher, and I got my master's online. So when I was an undergrad, I didn't take any online classes. That was 2000 to
Right.
2004. That wasn't really happening yet.
Not yet.
And I immediately in 2004, that August, went into a master's program at East Carolina University. I do remember I had to be there, I think, for like 4 weeks over the summer. I had to do something in person, but it was very short lived. And the rest of it was online. And I also got a teaching job. So I was going to school online and I
Yep.
was teaching. But my first year in the online learning, I was a long term sub.
Haha.
And, or just maybe I think I was a substitute first. So I didn't have a job every day.
Right.
And I remember I would dedicate all day Monday and I would sit there for 10 to 12 hours and I would do all of my
All your
coursework all day on Monday because then I would have, jobs the other days. But I remember that. And so, yeah, I was a product of getting a degree from university, largely online. And then fast forward a little bit, I was a high school teacher. Then I worked for North Carolina Virtual Public Schools, which at the time had about 60 to 80,000 students online.
Yep.
And I was one of the course leads who would take what we were teaching in the classroom and we would build the program and teach the same curriculum, but in the online setting. And then I
Yep.
would teach 3 classes a semester on top of teaching in the classroom. Do you, let me ask you this. Do you remember Moodle? Did you
Oh
ever use
yeah.
Moodle?
I love
Okay.
Moodle.
That's what we used. That was the
Oh,
very
it's
first thing
great.
I ever used for distance learning as a teacher,
Moodle.
as a teacher.
It was a fun platform. You could do all kinds of stuff with Moodle that you couldn't do. It was like the transition to Moodle was similar to when we didn't have any access to what was called Web 2.0 around 2006 and 7, when all of a sudden we can do blogging. All of a sudden we can, add to what was online in the web. So Moodle was fun. I really liked it.
Yeah, I remember that. That's what I learned how to do first. When I was a teacher in the classroom, that's when I learned how to use Moodle because we actually used it a little bit in the physical classroom as well because I had a computer lab.
Yeah.
I was a business teacher, so I had a room full of computers,
Yep.
and we used it for a little while. I remember that, and virtual classrooms, and which were
Yes.
really cool because even back then, I mean, this was 2006.
Yep.
It was almost like you could build this little avatar and then you could be in a virtual classroom with other avatars.
Yes.
And now they're
Yep.
talking about it like it's never existed before until now.
There was actually, I don't know, do you remember Second Life? It was
No.
this huge environment where you could create different sub environments. So I remember finding one place I could skydive, I could like hang glide, all these things, and you could go to different worlds within Second Life. And somebody built an ear, and you could walk through the ear and see. So from an education standpoint and the engaging a learner, walking through the ear, if I'm an audiology student and seeing the parts and how it was amazing. Second Life,
That's so
it's
cool.
still around, but it it was free back then, of course. So many
Yeah.
things were free in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to like present day.
Yes,
Um, how have you turned your background and your skills into the work that you do today with your adult clients?
adult clients. It's been a process, really. The principles of working with adults are the same, whether you're in a coaching setting, in an educational setting. Like adults love knowing what's coming next. They don't want to be surprised. They like to foresee what they're gonna see. They like choices. And so that's no matter what the setting is going to be true. So what I've done is take those principles that I use with my students. So I taught my basic full-time professorship was at Illinois State in and I taught a little bit of everything because of my background. So I had undergraduates in child development and secondary issues. I had master's students and doctoral students in an educational technology program for master's and doctoral. And so those principles worked for everybody. I remember one time I took QR codes. I made a QR code that they had to read and answer a question. Then they had to go back to the classroom and write the answer in their wiki. But I had to put them in groups so that somebody in the group had a phone that would read a QR code. That's how long ago this was. Because there was at a time, even after flip phones, that you didn't have a phone that could read QR codes. And then I took the codes, printed them out, and put them all over our 7-story building. So that kind of engagement at so many different levels is something that I think we can do with our clients in the coaching industry.
Yeah.
Does that
So,
answer?
what are you? Yes, it does. What kind of work are you doing with your clients today? Are you helping them create courses? Are you helping them transition from one-on-one into groups? Talk to us a little bit about that.
All of the above. So am actually running a workshop right now, and what we do in there, the first day of the workshop, we actually like set up their framework. Who are you working with? What are you solving? What is the transformation that you're helping them through, or what is the process that you're helping them through? Because I think different coaches do different things, and it's not always a linear or a developmental process. It might not be a stair step. So helping them define all of that. From there, we create their course. And from the course, we create a delivery plan. So most places that you go to learn how to create a course, they don't talk about how to deliver the course. I'm not talking about launching or marketing. I'm talking about actual day-to-day, what's the best way with adults to set everything up. How often do we meet? What do we do when we meet? How do I wrote something down about brain-based learning, which is actually comes out of the media side. And that is that people cannot read a PowerPoint while they're listening to you. So remember the old death by PowerPoint, where it was just words after words after words after words. So part of what I teach is how to do a presentation like that. If I'm teaching content, how to do that in such a way that they're able to listen, but they're able to get the cues from what they're seeing on the screen. So those three parts. So it's really refining what they've already got, really, because I like working with coaches like mindset and life coaches, business coaches that have been doing this for 3 to 5 years and know what they're doing, but still we always are refining. And so taking all of that, then building the course, because out of that refinement, you get the framework. And then from there, go to the course and then a delivery plan. So that's what I do. And it's fun.
Okay, so we're just gonna drop the big bomb, which is in the coaching and online expert course space. We all know the statistics out there when it comes to client success, which is abysmal. It is less than 10%. So across the board in the industry, less than 10% of people who are purchasing programs are getting the results that are being promised. Or
Right.
if we really want to look at it, from a legal perspective, the Federal Trade Commission, also known as the FTC, we've got to understand how they define client success, because they're the ones who are going to come after anybody. The way they define client success is your clients made back the money that they invested plus $1. And that's how we track client success. Well, in this industry, it is so low. It's like, I think it's like 5 to 7% or something. I would love to hear from your assessment. I'm sure, like, coming from the education world, it's like shocking to see some of the stuff that you see that goes on in the coaching and online course space, right?
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest, I don't know if they're mistakes that people are making when they're building programs and delivering the programs. I think those mistakes, like you and I talked, earlier when we first met, there's just a lack of skill and a lack of knowledge when it comes to adult learning and teaching. So I would love for you to just kind of unpack, like, where are we going wrong as an industry? What skills have we not built that is leading to our clients not being successful and getting results?
Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that people try to teach too much.
Mm.
And then clients get overwhelmed. When they get overwhelmed, they get frustrated and they step away. So if you look at, let's just take an online course that a coach is using, and across the board, not the client success part of it, but the completion rate is even lower. I mean, I've heard 2 to 3% of people complete a course. So if we look at why they're not completing it, we see why they're not being successful. And I think the first part is that a coach will just brain dump everything they know and have done in that area and not be strategic or progressive in what they teach. So make it simple. I have 12 modules worth of information. Each module has 6 elements of that information. That's 48 things that I'm teaching in a course. To me, that's like 6 courses.
Yeah.
So it's really defining what the most important step is that they need to take first, building that out, and then going to the next one. So that's number one. They teach too much. Secondly, I think the way that that they organize the course, so it may not be logical. I've seen a lot of coaches say, "Hey, I've got a whole library of stuff. Go find what you need." And I just
That's
cringe.
super common.
I hate that, because I don't know enough to know which place to look.
Correct.
And if it's unorganized, how do I even find it? Because that's one of the issues. I worked with a coach who did a really good job. She had all this information, all these elements to her courses, and she actually created a spreadsheet and had topics like on this part of the spreadsheet, and then where it could be found in which courses. And that was public if you're in her program. So you have to do something that makes accessibility easy, because that's another thing about not just adults, but more and more, I mean, across the board, it's like the microwave even is too slow, right? It's like, I want it now. I don't want to have to look. So I think really organizing things in a way that it's just easy for them to find things, and in an order that builds on the next skill. Now, like I said before, not every coach does a developmental model. Most do. You're here and we want to take you here. If I'm not that kind of coach and there's a lot of different things, then I still need to put it in an order that makes sense. And I think one of the best ways to find out is to ask people, you've been in my program. What do you think about this? How could this help? Or bring in a coach to help you decide. But I think we just need, organization is huge. And being a PE person, that's one of the first things we learned, because we had 60 kids out on the field that we had to make sure didn't kill each other, right? Or hit the ball up at each other or whatever that would happen. So those are the first 2 things. The other thing that I see a lot of is people putting up videos from their coaching sessions.
Yes, I don't like that.
I don't like it either. It drives me nuts, because it goes back to, now I have to listen to the whole thing to figure out what's applicable to me, instead of a video that says, today we're going to teach about learning objectives. Here's how to write learning objectives, why they're important, what they end up doing for you and your students, your clients, your learners, whatever. So I think those 3 things really limit success, completion, and ultimately that client success. There are a variety of hosting platforms. I know there's a new one out that I, of course, forgot the name of, that adds some gamification to it. So if you complete this, you get bells ringing and things like that. To me, that's cute, but does it last? I mean, I don't know that it's like a point of no return, no return that they get on that. So I know I'm going to do this, yada, yada, yada. And if I don't, it's no big deal. But if I situate what I'm teaching as part of what you need to do with the next step, and that's very clear, then people are more excited to do that. So my teaching and the way I do it has to be approachable. It has to be streamlined. I'm known for being kind of too short, too terse. Like, this is the way we're going to do it. and it's like, so I need to move more toward giving more detail at times. And I think the last thing that comes to mind is that we forget, because we're so like immersed in what we're doing and what we know, we forget what other people don't know. Like, we take for granted that people would know what an online course is. Some people aren't going to know what an online course is. They know you go online and, is the teacher going to stand and talk to me? Is it? So little things like that they just kind of come together and make a mess. It's
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, these are all so good. I just had a thought that escaped my brain. Let's see if it comes back to me. Oh, I know what it is. You were talking about, we forget how much we understand and we know, and the people in our programs do not have the knowledge base and the experience that we have, and the topic that they have paid
Right.
us to, learn more about and take action on and get results with. And I think the thing that we have to remember is that all of us are working with beginners. Now, that doesn't mean that they're beginner, if you're teaching people, if you're working with entrepreneurs on a subject matter that is around like hiring and growing a team, they're not a beginner in building a business. They're not a beginner in making money. They already know how to do those things, but they are a beginner perhaps in hiring or building a team. Like, nobody's really buying anything in the coaching world or the course world unless they don't know how to do it and they don't have those results. So they want you to teach them how to get there. So they are a beginner in relation to your area of expertise. And I
Right.
think that that's what we have really forgotten. I'm guilty of that too. And I have a teaching background.
Me too.
I think yeah, we forget that you've got to make things so step by step, so digestible. You really have to get into the nitty gritty when you're designing your programs. Like, what is the very first thing this person needs to do? And when
Yep.
they do it, what's the results of that going to be? And then what makes sense? What's the next thing for them to do? And I think what we're also not doing well enough, I think an area of improvement is we've got to break it down into very, very small baby steps instead of these big, grandiose, sometimes
Yeah.
almost esoteric steps. And just from like a client continuing to engage and participate and show up, you were talking about how clients aren't completing courses or
Right.
programs. Therefore, if you can't complete it, you're not going to get the result. What I've noticed, one of the number one reasons why a client will engage less and participate less is, to your point, the way the program is structured and life happens. They get overwhelmed, then they get behind,
Mm-hmm.
then they come to calls and they see other people getting results. But then in their mind, they're like, well, I'm overwhelmed and I'm behind, and now I'm embarrassed. And
Right.
now I'm humiliated. That's one of the top emotions that come up for clients. Once they
Mm.
get to I'm embarrassed and humiliated, they start bowing out. And then you stop seeing them. They're not asking questions. They're not on the calls. You
Right.
can tell they're not clicking into the portal. So you know they're not doing anything. They're never going to get the result, which then as business owners, we've got to take this into consideration. They're not going to buy from you again. They're
Yeah.
not going to send a referral to you. So you're also losing money on that, So
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one of the things that happens is we have a start of our program and we have the end. So let's just talk about the course instead. We have a start of this course and we have the end. And people go through it and stop, and people drop out. What happens is we don't have we don't have like mid evaluations, mid assessments, or areas where we step in and look. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to be launching a longer program next year. Because right now I'm just doing like a 2-week quick start, real quick, get your course done. Is every like 3 weeks or every month, however long it is, we have a 15-minute call, or we have a 5-minute call, or I have a form for you to fill out. The problem with forms is most adults won't fill them out. They just, there's no, they don't get anything from it. So if I can meet with them, or if I have a team, because I have so many people in my program, and they can have a meeting once a month, then I think that keeps people connected. So if well, let's take that one person you said who something happened with life, and after about, let's say we have a 6-month program, so after about month 2, they disappear. If I had a meeting with them month 2, a meeting with them month 1, month 2, month 3, then I know how to connect them back in, give them extra whatever they needed so that they feel like they can step back in. I do think that one of the shortcomings, one of the few though, of a group program is that people are different levels, but that's up to the coach's delivery. That's where it comes into like group dynamics of how to make that a positive. I don't expect you all to be there. Everybody goes at their own pace. Everybody has different hurdles to climb over. So I think normalizing that for people might help them not feel embarrassed when they're coming back and, stuck someplace.
Question I get often that I'm curious your thoughts on this, especially with group programs. One of the questions I get a lot is, what are your thoughts on cohort style? Like, I'm bringing a group of people in who all start together, they go through the program together, they end together,
Yeah.
versus Evergreen, where it's the same program, but I could sell it and bring new people in every quarter, every month, every day. And oftentimes usually people will start with cohort style. Everybody starts, goes through, ends together, because that's more simple for people to lead. And then they start wanting to make more money and they want to scale. And a lot of business coaches teach, well, you've got to turn your group into Evergreen because you need to be able to sell it anytime. That's going to be your pathway to $1 million. That is a very confusing concept for a lot of business owners. And they have a really hard time making that change in their mind. How am I going to go from teaching everybody the same thing at the same time to, I've got people coming in at different times. Somebody could have been there for 6 months and now I've got a newbie coming in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to lead an Evergreen style live group coaching program that really works for the deliverer and all the clients.
So my question to people would be, do you have a course that everybody's going through? Is there content that they need to be learning, whether it's videos to watch, worksheets? Do they have that in place? Because I think a lot of people don't. And it's just, they're coaching by the seat of their pants. They're like, okay, today we're going to talk about this and this, we're going to talk about that. So again, it goes back to that organization. I'm going to feel, as a coach, I'm going to feel more confident if I really have a plan to follow and at least buckets of information to draw from. As a client, it's very comforting for me to know that my coach knows what they're doing and demonstrates it in that way. And I think that's the first part. The second part is, I think, let me think for a second. So if I don't have anything for them to work on it's just coaching. Today we're going to talk about Facebook. And then the next time we're going to talk about LinkedIn. Then we're going to talk, and it's just pick and choose. That's very chaotic. That to me is the big part. Going from that cohort style to what I call rolling enrollment, because that's educational. So I'm learning that people are calling Evergreen different things. To me, Evergreen is something that I'm not involved in. It's like I just sell my course and you go take it if you want to. But if going through that rolling enrollment, if we take what I said before and we instigate the monthly assessment or the monthly evaluation, whatever, monthly check-in, that will help people at different levels. The other thing, because we have really good technology now in Zoom, I could actually, and I used to do this with my students, I would give them a test, like a survey that gave me information about where they were in technology. And then I would give them a rank of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 being the highest. And I would create study groups or just classroom groups and make sure that I had a 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 in each group. So you could actually do the same kind of thing and say, okay, red group, and then you just mark them off and you send them to their own room in Zoom. You just have a breakout room for different things, or you have all the 5s go in a breakout room and you're going to discuss this and you're going to discuss that. So I think, I don't know if that answered going from one to the other, but those are my ideas of if I had a large group program. First of all, I need somebody in there helping me. I can't, if I have 20 people, really, if I have more than 12, because 12 is really optimal for just one person. But if I have more than 12 or 15 people, I need somebody helping me in there, looking at the chat, looking at who's checking in, looking at the pictures and seeing if people are like really paying attention. Like we did in the classroom, right? You look around and you're like, Johnny is over there. Now, I didn't have to deal with students and their phones very much. Because they weren't like, it's not like now where they can, although I did have students that could text without looking, like if they had their phone in their jacket or something, they could text without looking.
Wow.
I know.
That's impressive.
So I think all of that comes back to that delivery piece. And how am I delivering to their process? What do they get out of every single time we meet? Have I given them what they need to be one step further than they were when they came in? And if I can't do that in a rolling kind of enrollment or in the evergreen, like you're talking about, then I need to stay with the cohort, because then it's just one thing. This is what we're talking about this week, this week, this week, this week. Because it can get overwhelming for a coach and for the people, because then we go back to what I said before, is like, here's my video of today's session. Okay, I need to know about this. Well, where is that? I don't know. You'll have to listen. That's not good.
Oh, that's the worst. And those recorded calls that live inside of people's portals, they're 60 to 90 minutes long.
They are.
Nobody's nobody's going to sit there and
Nobody's
watch that
watching
and listen to
those.
it and try to find the 3 minutes that they need.
I know. So
Okay, so I agree completely on the same page with you. I do believe, and this is where the coaching industry kind of poo-poos on this, because they're like, nobody wants modules. Nobody wants a portal with a bunch of videos. Oh, contraire. But if it is a rolling enrollment or evergreen program, then you've got to have some kind of curriculum that you have designed that is tried and true and proven, that when
yes.
people go do what you're asking them to do, they get results. So you actually have to have that. Sorry,
Yeah.
people. And I need to, I think video is great and short video.
Yeah.
So here's my next question. So this is another question that I hear often. Same thing. Okay, I get it. I'm going to do the videos. But what about the live calls? So every week, some people have, it just depends. Some programs are on steroids. Some people have one call a week. Other people I've seen in the real estate investing space, they'll have like 18 different calls a week that you
Wow.
could potentially go to. And it's like all different kinds of things that those calls are for. So let's say somebody has like 1, 2, or 3 calls a week. Where I've also seen it very challenging for coaches is they've got the videos in the portal, people are going through the curriculum, but then they're like, well, what do I teach on the calls? Am I teaching on the calls? Are they just open Q&A? Like, what are we actually doing on the calls? And I think where that question comes from, it's 2 different places. If I have somebody who's in month 6th versus someone who's only been there for 2 days, how do I make that work on a live call?
Yeah.
And then I think there's also this thing with coaches where they're like, I've got to show up and I have to give like so much value and I've got to teach and I've got to just keep pouring into people. And then they think they have to come up with something that's very different than what is in the
Yeah.
actual curriculum. So those are kind of two different directions that people could take their
Yeah.
calls. But how do we decide what to do on our live weekly calls in a group program?
Well, with this group that I'm working with right now, we talked a little bit about this. And my suggestion is the flipped learning is that I have something for them to do. They have something for their clients to do. They do it, and then they come in on the call. They give a short overview, and then they answer questions, do problem solving. That to me is the short and easy way to do that. The other, you have to be careful with this, but if you know of people who are in month 6 and are reliable and somebody that, has earned your respect, you can ask them to answer some of the questions. What was your experience? What helped you most? So drawing them in. So one of the things that I didn't mention I was an academic dean, an academic counselor. And one of the things I started was a peer counseling program. So they didn't counsel, but they were part of our academic counseling. So they would go and help other kids in the school, or they would help us do things. So I think it's kind of that peer to peer. So that's one thing. I think I really need to know what my limitations are and what their needs are, and I need some way. I need to hire a coach to help me fill that gap. So if I'm not very good at on the fly questions, then I'm not going to do that in a live call. Most coaches are, but there are people that maybe think they are and they're not, or people that get a question but never really answer it, that kind of stuff. I've been a part of that before. I'm sure you have too. I need to know this, this, and this. Well, back in 19, it's like it
Yeah.
didn't really. um, the other part I was thinking, I'm like you, I forgot what it was. You asked two things. So one was the different levels. Oh, and the other was teaching. Um, Debbie has a lot of meetings. We have like 3 a week. And I was like, wow, this is so much time with her, which is like worth so much. I think if I'm capable of doing that in my timing, and I have more than 10 or 15 people in my program, having just an open coaching call and on one day, bring your questions, let's figure this out. And then having a training call with question and answer time at the end might be a good way to kind of balance that out, because then not everything is 1 hour or 1 90-minute section. That might
Yeah.
be, I like
Yeah.
that approach.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier, that you can do on Zoom, which is put your clients in breakout rooms.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it makes sense for it to be completely, just manually done by Zoom. Like Zoom just puts them in whatever breakout room we want them to go in, and it doesn't matter who's
Yeah.
in the room. It just depends. Like if there's a discussion where it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But you were saying, like, you mentioned two different options. One is put people, if you have people who are scoring themselves a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or you're scoring them a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 based on their ability level, you could put a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all together in a room.
Right.
Or you could take all the fives. If somebody's a business coach and they have people in their program making a range of amount of money, maybe you do it by phase of business or the amount of money that they're making,
Yes.
because the business conversation is going to be very different if you're a 5 versus being a 1.
Yeah.
So how do you decide how to formulate, whether it's breakout rooms in a Zoom, or some people host live events for their clients or retreats for their clients and they want to do small group work?
Yeah.
That's another example. Another example, which I've been a part of this and I've done this in my programs, I think, accountability groups,
Yes.
accountability pods, or whatever you call them. A little small group of
Yep.
people are going to meet on their own once a week. So how do you decide how to structure who goes in those groups? I think people really struggle with that too. And
Huh.
and I also want to say this. In my opinion, peer groups like that are extremely powerful. Whether it's breakout rooms on a live call, or it's accountability pods, or it's letting people do peer-to-peer work in a live setting, in a live event, a retreat, that is one of my most favorite things to do.
Yeah.
And out of all the third party interviews I've conducted with other people's clients, it's one of their most favorite things that they like about programs when they get to do that, because they end up learning more from each other than they do from the instructor. But where I do see coaches having a struggle is not knowing who to put in those, not knowing who to put together in those groups. And then this is going to be a two-part question.
Uh-oh.
Um, how do we actually structure those groups so that they are valuable to the people in them and not just wasting time and chatting and gossiping and
Right.
commiserating together? Because that can happen, especially if you got a bunch of women together. They're just going to like commiserate with each other.
Okay, so how do I divide them up? And then
How
how
do
do
I
I
divide them up? And
structure
then how do
them?
I structure them so that they're valuable?
Gotcha. Okay, so and then I have something I want to go back to because I remembered what I had forgotten. So as far as dividing them up, I think there's, like you already mentioned, several ways. Another way is how long they've been in the program and how much they've done. So if I've been in the program and I've only done modules 1 and 2, then I shouldn't be with the other people that have done all 6 modules. I'm making stuff up. So I think that level, I think also, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but we need to look at that, is who do we have that is really more shy, that it takes more for them to, I mean, it really takes a lot of courage for them to say something in a meeting, as opposed to somebody that's dominant and always has something to say and always takes 10 minutes instead of 3. So I think looking at the personalities and seeing, so I would put somebody like that with another strong personality that has better boundaries. So after we've been in groups together for a while, I kind of have my list of how to put the personalities together. And then I wouldn't put shy Sarah with domineering Donna together, because Sarah's never going to say anything and Donna's just going to go off. So that's part of how I would add that element to what we've already said. And I think as far as structure, I give them a question or two. They have to answer something, and it needs, so maybe let's pretend I just did a short teaching to remind them what this element, like let's say module 3, is about. Not that we're going in order, but just let's talk about this because it keeps coming up. So I go over it. I take 2 to 3 minutes and say, remember, these principles have to do with this. And then I say, all right, I'm going to put you in groups and I want you to talk about this, this, and this. So answer these 3 questions. So you really give them a lot of direction. And some people are going to go off with it and some people aren't. The other thing I would do is, if I do have somebody domineering Donna, I would meet with them individually and say, this, I love what you have to say most of the time, but I need you to really rein it in, because it's like stepping into other people's time, so I would really talk with them about that, because there's a reason they're doing that. And that's good coaching, is helping them in that, grow in that area.
Yeah,
Does that answer?
that answers my question. Did you go back to what you forgot and remembered?
I didn't. Okay,
Let's do
so
that.
let's go back to the idea of, I have 200 videos in my library, or I did a live, we did our live meeting, and now it's in the library. So we now have the ability with AI to organize, and we use Fathom, which Debbie uses. And when I have Fathom recording, I can actually hit highlight, and it will highlight a section and then I hit it again, and it brings this out. And then when you see the page, the web page, it'll say highlight, and these things were highlighted. So that's one way. And then you can also search the transcript for information. So if I had a team and I told my people, make sure you listen to this, if I told my clients that, I would tell my team, I want you to go in, look at the transcript and say what time it was at. And then they can post the time that was if I didn't highlight it. So I think we can start using technology to shortcut things for clients that are really stuck, but need to listen to what we said, or just, have my team take the transcript and make a post about that particular thing. So that's what came up.
Really good tip. Yeah, I love that. That's a really good tip. Amazing. Okay, let's land the plane.
Oh boy.
Even though I could talk to you like for days and days and days and geek out on this stuff. I think this is so fascinating. I think it's so fun. I know my wish and your wish and our hope in this industry is that people will start putting a bit more emphasis and priority on the structure and delivery of what it is that we're selling.
Yeah.
Look, we're all business owners. We understand we've got to be marketing and selling and making money to stay in business. We've got to think like a business owner, not just think like a coach, not just think like a teacher, or else you never grow a business.
Right.
And a lot of coaches get stuck in that model where it's like they're thinking about just the craft, not actually building the business. But we do need to put this more at the forefront because our clients deserve to get results for the hard-earned money that they are spending. And if you become known for someone where your clients are coming in and having an amazing experience and getting incredible results, they're happy, they're satisfied, which, by the way, listeners, everything that Cheri and I have been discussing here, yes, it's going to help clients get better results, but everything that you've unpacked for us, it's going to help the client have a better experience, be happier, and be satisfied.
Absolutely.
And I was training a team yesterday, and I said, there's a very big difference between getting results and having a great experience and being satisfied. They're not the same three things. Your clients could get results, but not be satisfied or have a great experience, or they could have a good experience with the community, but not get results. And the way that you are packaging and delivering to your clients, whatever you sold to them, that is very, very powerful in the satisfaction and experience category.
Yeah.
And of course, the results. So everything we're discussing is actually going to help you make more money because it's going to lead to higher rates of retention, more renewals. If I have a good experience with their program, I'm probably going to be more likely to buy something else from you.
That's right.
And I'm going to be more likely to bring other people in and make referrals to you. So this is really, really powerful stuff that I know good and well does not get enough airtime, and enough coaches and leaders and business owners are not paying attention to this. So I wish this was number one on people's categories, but just to kind of land the plane, Cheri, if people were going to, let's say that, folks, this is not their first rodeo. Maybe they have an existing program or they've run groups before. I think a lot of people have run groups before and then they don't do super well, and they've got to, rev the engine all back up again. But let's say we're not talking to people who've never done this before. They have something that exists. Where's a good starting point for them to start moving in this direction and implementing some of the strategies that you've shared with us today?
Well, bottom line is they need to be working with somebody that knows what they're doing. I really think they need a coach. You can't, if it didn't work what you tried, how are you going to get it better without another set of eyes on it, especially the eyes of an expert who's, does this like me.
Yeah, because what you and I have talked about in the past offline is that one of the biggest problems is coaches and leaders they just do not have the skill set to do this. They just don't have the skills, the knowledge, the background, the experience. So to your point, how are you going to figure it out if nobody's teaching you how to do it?
Exactly. Exactly. And you know this, the old adage is we teach how we were taught. So we're going to coach the way we were coached, basically. And if that just perpetuates itself, until we get new information, new approaches, and we learn different ways to do things, then we're going to continue to do that. And I think to the point you made of I ran a group program for a while and then it just didn't work. Now we're back into one-on-one, and the one-on-one is not scalable. So would I rather kill myself doing 40-hour weeks with one-on-one clients, or go with a framework that gives me a way of sharing information to both my one-on-one and my group program? So whether I'm working with one-on-one coaches or I'm working with group, they're in the same course. They're going through the same information. So it doesn't really matter. So I would say newer coaches, not the ones you were talking about, should start with a course with their one-on-one clients. And then everybody's organized, then you can take it to a group program where you've already got the structure. You're not having to reinvent the wheel again. So
That's the way I would go too.
I
Love
know.
that. Awesome. Well, if people are listening to this and they're like, I need a Cheri in my life, how do they find you?
So I actually am giving a free audit of program or a course, and it's a 20-minute time with me to go through whichever they choose, the course or the program, and I will give them and tell them what I see could change and a plan for doing that. And that is cheritoledo.com/audit. And if they just want to talk with me and say hi and figure out if I can help them, it's cheritoledo.com/ you like me using my pen. I'm such a teacher. So I have to say sorry, let me finish, chat. cheritoledo.com/chat. I was one of the teachers that had the little holder for the chalk. Remember the holders? I did.
Yes. Yeah, you did. Wow.
I
I
know.
remember chalkboards. Then they turned into the whiteboards with the marker,
Whiteboards.
dry
Yep.
erase boards. Then
And
they
then
became
erase.
virtual whiteboards.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Back in the day. And
I
they had like
know.
the film strips. You remember the film strips? And you had
Absolutely. Yep.
what was the thing called that you wrote? I don't even remember what that was
Oh,
called.
the overhead projector,
Overhead projector. Yeah.
and you
Oh my
use
gosh.
the wax pens, or
Yes.
you used the other kind of pens for those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or it was, yeah, I remember that. And there was like sometimes you could even put like it's almost like a laminated sheet of paper or something. And you could
Yeah,
write on that
that's
and then
right.
print it off.
It
Yeah.
was
Oh,
like plastic.
we should go back to the 80s and 90s. That was the time. That was
I
the best
know. It
time.
was so
Right?
fun.
I know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love this conversation so much.
Me
So
too.
thank you for being here. And all those links are in the show notes. So if anyone wants to connect with Cheri and have your program or course audited and then have her come in and help you revamp that, um, I encourage you to do that. So thanks for being with us, Dr. Cheri.
Thank you so much, Megan. This has been great.
Awesome. All right. Until next time, remember to design a business and life that's built to last.